Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Leadership Matters, a weekly half hour series aimed at supporting leaders. I am Dr. Kenroy Burke, your host, and this evening I'm so excited in season 4 to have with me Tracy Knight Lloyd, Customer Experience Marketing and Communications Specialist. We're going to have a conversation with Tracy right after this announcement.
Crumb's Bakery, so good, even down to the last crumb.
Again, we want to say thank you so very much to our sponsors, Crumbs Bakeries, who has come on board for another season with us. So this evening we are having a conversation with Tracy Knight Lloyd. Tracy, good evening and welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good evening, Dr. Burke. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. So this evening we want to talk a little bit about leadership, the demands of leadership in this, what we would consider a VUCA world. But before we get there, tell the audience, who is Tracy?
I guess Tracy is a mixture of contradictions in a neat little package. I can be loud, but I still like quiet. Um, I like to be around people, but I still like my alone time. I'm hardworking, but I also know when it's time to rest.
Mhm.
I would say that I'm kind, affable. I love talking to strangers. I don't, as they say, I don't have any stranger danger. I love people. I love to communicate. I love service work. I'm a Rotarian. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a child they describe as autistic, but I call him very special. He's simply awesome. My son Ade. Um, in my professional life, I work at Sagicor and I am the Vice President of Customer Experience and Sales Strategy for Sagicor General. A great learning experience, and I've been with Sagicor for quite some time. I started there in 2000, left and went back, but I've spent most of my working life with Sagicor in different divisions. So pretty much that's who I am. I love Bajan culture. I love Bajan food. I do love a good line, so with a lot of laughter, but I also would enjoy the quiet solitude of a library, an art gallery or museum. So I'm like that. I can go from one to the next. I love church music. I love hymns, and I also love calypso and reggae. So, like I say, I'm that kind of person, multifaceted, and I like what I like, and that's just me.
Fantastic. So we have Tracy on the two spectrum, never ever middle ground. But Tracy on the two
Yeah,
spectrum.
and it's yeah, and in some respects there are things that I'm fairly conservative, and then there are things where I'm very liberal. So that's just how I am. That's me.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now let's talk a little bit about your journey, your journey in this whole leadership dynamic. What has it been like for Tracy over the years, the to where she is, or I guess where she started to where she is right now in leadership?
I think I think one of the things that I always say, my leadership journey has been characterized by what I call sandpaper lessons. You get the gritty sandpaper rubbing, and but yet it smooths you down and it refines. So I would
Hmm.
say most of my leadership journey is about sandpaper lessons. You can learn leadership in a university. You can learn it in a mentorship course, but nothing works lesson wise um, better than an experience.
Yeah.
And I had quite a bit of leadership experiences. I had a wonderful mentor who once told me at that time, "Oh, I don't see much managerial skills in you," and she was right. At that time, I was not ready for leadership, And I remember I went out and I bought all these books, Covey and Carnegie, and it was good because it made me open my eyes to look around John Maxwell, look around to see, well, what is a good leader? And from then I realized why she said that, because I wasn't problem solving on my own. I was putting everything onto her. And that is one of the things that I learned. That was one of my leadership lessons in my journey. That got me going as to reading and exposing myself and watching leaders and seeing what they did. And how could I emulate? What did I need to do to lead myself better and lead people better? I learned some other powerful lessons in terms of people development along my leadership journey. I remember once I had a really good assistant, and I kept saying, she's such a good an assistant. And there were other posts opening in my department. And because she was such so good, I was like, okay, she can be my assistant. But I was not fully in tune to her own personal ambitions of where she wanted to go. And because I felt, oh, I need her here, I could hire other people. Eventually, I lost that resource altogether because from her position, she didn't see herself advancing and she didn't see me seeing her as advancing. So I find that that was a tough leadership lesson where, you don't hold your people back.
Yeah.
Be mindful of what your people their ambitions are, and try wherever possible to develop and groom them, because you want to be that leader that help people, help your team on their career path. You don't want to be a leader that stagnates. So that was a painful lesson for me, and I laugh and I say to everybody, she fired me as her boss, but she kept me on as her mentor. So today, that is the relationship we have, and it's a beautiful one. But it was also a painful lesson for me as well. And the other leadership lesson I learned, my sandpaper lesson on my journey, is a funny one, but it goes to show you must not anticipate what you think your team needs. So we had done a whole set of work, and I felt really happy with the team. And I said, okay, we're going to have a Friday night line. And as simple as it sounds, and I ordered the food. No, I have a lot of allergies and I eat kind of weird. So I ordered a vegetable platter, and I thought that that was so great. It was like a spinach dip with broccoli and sweet pepper and everything. And I remember saying to the team, oh, come into my office, man. We can have a lime. And when they got in there, they're looking at me like, seriously, Tracy? I was like, yes, it tastes good. And they were like, so there's no samosas, no fish cakes? I was like, no. And I was like, Tracy, how could you? What were you thinking? Because that's what you would eat, but that doesn't mean that that's what your team would like. But it says to me, sometimes as leaders, we can't think that we know what our team wants or what's best for them. We needed to collaborate. I needed to say to them, guys, I'm holding a lime. We're going to celebrate this milestone. What do you guys think for the menu? So no, there's a running joke in the organization. Tracy is not allowed to bring food to without permission to any line or event. All right. So those are the kind of lessons I've learned. In terms of being upfront as well with people, of give them good feedback. Don't shy away from those difficult conversations, because you don't want it to come as a shock to people when they may not be promoted or something happens. You have to say, these are the issues that I'm seeing developing, and this is where you would need to improve and I would want you to grow. So I would say that my leadership journey has been characterized by, I would say, some sandpaper lessons. Um, but like I say, they refined me into a much better leader.
Fantastic. And what I'm hearing you say is, as a leader, a major part of your journey has been learning. And I think that that is something that we all need to embrace. That a major part of our journey must always be learning. As we come back into this second part of our conversation, Tracy, and we start to look at some of the demands on leaders, I'm going to be asking what are those unique skills that we would deem necessary for this period. But before we do that, let's take another pause for another cause. not just crumbs, but it's also crispy chicken right there on the corner of Fairchild Street, Bridgetown. Pass through. I think there's also another outlet in Spikestown. So as we were talking a little bit earlier, Tracy, we were talking now about workplaces. We are talking about the demands that right now on leaders in this kind of VUCA world. What are some of the unique skills that you would deem necessary to be able to navigate this tough period?
Well, I'm not sure how unique it is, but I'll just give you a little story about myself. When COVID first happened in February of March 2020, I had just traveled to Las Vegas to do a leadership conference, Black Enterprise Women of Power, and that's a conference for female Black execs. And I had just come back from that conference, and at that same time, I came back in the Sunday, and on the Monday, my son had to have emergency surgery to remove his appendix. Shortly after that, we went into lockdown. So for me, I had a couple of issues going on. I had traveled, and I was on mandatory quarantine from Sagicor. Sagicor implemented that policy very early, so I couldn't go into the office for the 14 days. Everybody was like, "You travel, you must have COVID." Waiting for myself to cough, that kind of thing. Then you have your son who needed to have emergency surgery so that his appendix didn't rupture and he loses life. And then you're also responsible for a customer facing team who is in the office. So I had all of that going on, and the guilt of not being able to go into office with your team at the end of the day, because I have a sick child, I have parents who are elderly and with comorbidities as well. So I had to run my ship from at home. I really couldn't physically go into the office. And I was a bit, I really had everything happening to me February, March. So the truth of the matter, the first skill that I went to was self care,
Hmm.
because I said to myself, if I have to manage this ship as captain, I can't be overboard. I gotta be on all hands on deck, and I gotta be steering this ship home. And so I became very self aware. I made sure that I exercised, I ate, I had a routine, I had structure. I built my day um, to make sure that I was present and I was in the best possible mental and physical shape that I could be in to navigate these waters. Secondly, I always had good communication with my team. We had regular meetings. We had um, I do sprints with one on one with my team leads. And then we also have a huddle. So I kept those, but obviously transferred those to virtual. So I made sure that I was regularly communicating, and a lot of collaborating. So I did a lot of communication and collaboration. Those are these skills that will get you through. You have to work with not only your teams but other teams. How can you help? What's happening um, on this end? And because I'm customer experience, I also navigated the waters a bit differently in that we always captured customer feedback, but because we were in such a volatile time, we
Yeah.
captured even more customer feedback. That was something that was brought to the attention of the management team, and we acted on those things. So if we found that we had a bottleneck on the phone line because a lot of people were calling to make payments over the phone or find out how to make payments, my recommendation was, okay, we may need more cashiers here. We need to do this. We need to do that. So those are the kind of things. A lot of communication, a lot of collaboration, self care, flexibility, for sure, and just sit down and deep problem solving and strategizing. Okay, this is what's happening now. These are the demands. This is how I can deliver this service here as seamlessly as possible. How can I reposition my team? So there were times that you know when we were in lockdown, yes, we didn't have any business but we took the time in my area, ran the data, and we looked for all of our vulnerable customers, and we did check-ins. So my team, who were not at home twiddling our thumbs, is like, come on, we have customers out there who are lonely, who are not hearing from anyone. let's use this time to reach out to them. And that was so well received. And I team member, it was difficult sometimes because not hearing anyone, people kind of offloaded on our team. But on the end of it, a lot of my team members felt good that they had done something during this time to reassure their customers in a non-business sense way. We were not looking for money. It was not about making money. It was about saying, hey, we know that you may be lonely at this time. We're saying hi, how are you? Checking in. Um, so I think a lot of flexibility, problem solving, communication, collaboration, but taking care of self and making sure that you're grounded, because you have to be able to lead your team. I can fall apart. Yeah, I have personal issues, but I can fall because I had a team to lead. Business had to go on, and I had to be able to do motherhood and my career. Right. So those are some of the skills that you really need. You have to also be open minded because COVID is just throwing out everything that we never thought it could throw up till it keeps on
I
giving.
can tell you that. I can tell you, it keeps evolving and evolving and evolving, and every time
In
you
more
think
ways than one.
you have your
Yes.
finger on it, it's
Yeah.
continuing to
Yeah.
evolve, and therefore your responses obviously need also to continue to evolve. So we're gonna take another pause for a cause, but when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit more about this entire demanding workplace now for employees themselves.
Here's some of your best news since the lockdowns. 7 Crumbs Bakery locations are now open on Sundays and bank holidays from 7 in the morning. They are Eagle Hall, Wildy, Fairchild Street, Oystons, My Lord's Hills, Pipestown and Fairview, while the other 10 Crumbs locations open Monday to Saturday as usual. Crumbs for a wide variety of fresh cakes, pastries and bread. Crumbs, so good, even down to the last crumb.
Now, Tracy, you deal with customers. You also deal with in customer, in what we call, sorry, in-house customers. The employees of organizations and working with them, making sure that they're comfortable, etc., and that they're having a good experience, just the same experience that you would want your external customers, that you want the internal customers to also have. Now, workplaces have demanded a whole lot over the last 20 months of employees. A change in the way they work, a whole set of different things have happened. Let's talk a little bit now, first, before we get into some advice. Let's talk about some of the things that you have seen, you have watched over the last 20 months evolve out of this entire experience for the what we would want to consider the regular employee working in a workplace.
Um, it has evolved. A lot of functions have evolved. Some
Mhm.
people have actually, I would say, taken on additional duties.
Mhm.
Some people have had their job duties change dramatically. I think as leaders, one of the things that we have to be cognizant of is that this has happened.
Yeah.
Um, these changes have happened because businesses, departments, employees, everybody has needed to pivot
Yeah.
during COVID. For instance,
Yeah.
even this, we would have probably been doing this program in a studio,
Yeah.
right? Before COVID, that would have been normal. So everybody's had to pivot, and I think we have to be compassionate as leaders. We have to be compassionate.
Yes.
One of the things that I spent a lot of time doing, customer experience throws out of when you look at customer feedback, what you then use that to do is to really drive process improvements.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I really focus a lot on is where the bottlenecks. I'm looking at these. So how can we do this better, not only for the customer but for our team member? So you really have to look at removing the bottlenecks, removing the obstacles.
Yeah.
Okay, how are we enhancing the team's experience on the job? What are we doing? Yes, we want to do this faster, but is it feasible? Can it
Yeah.
work in this environment? Do they have the technology to assist them? Is the time frame worth it. So those are the kind of things that I spend a lot of time looking
A
at.
lot
Where
of
the
time working
bottlenecks?
through.
How can we? I don't, you know, I don't believe in tedious work. Is this something that can be automated? Um, those are the kind of things that, and because I also lead a sales team, it's very important that they be allowed to have the time and the leeway to service their customers. I cannot bog them down into administrative, um, tedious tasks. It will not only rob them of their motivation, but it will slow them down in terms of the amount of revenue they need to generate. So those are the kind of things that you have to, but you have to lead with compassion. And what, as a leader in these times, you have to be that problem solver. You have to say, okay, my team has said, okay, we need another resource here, or we need to do this. How can we make this work? What can I do to make sure that they move through seamlessly? What systems can be adjusted? And you really have to listen. You have to listen to your team, ask the right questions, have the
Yeah,
solutions,
yeah.
possible solutions. I'm fortunate though, in that over the years I spent a lot of time working with my team, trying trying to develop them and so forth. I'm really proud to say that my team right now, my team of leaders, I've seen them
Mhm.
evolve over the course of time. And I'm proud to say that they have developed in that they started out with me doing certain things. Now they really have expanded their repertoire. And I think one of the beautiful things when you work on developing your team is that they come to you with solutions. Sometimes they would say
Correct.
to me, Tracy, we got X and X a problem. I'd be like, oh, okay. But before I started to say anything, this is what we can do. So this is what's gonna happen. And I'm like, yeah. And I feel really good as a leader. I'm not threatened by it. I am emboldened by it because it means that I have developed a culture, a team environment where they're comfortable suggesting their own ideas. They feel empowered to make decisions and suggestions. And it allows me then to focus on a lot more strategic, um, objectives and plans because they are owning the department and owning the solutions. And that is really a good place as a leader for me.
So so true. So there's a dynamic that has taken place in this entire experience. Where now we're working from home. Several persons did it in the initial stages because it was impossible to get going to the workplace. The directives didn't allow. But as workplaces started to reopen, persons were allowed the opportunity to work from home. How have you found that experience? And from a yes, from the perspective of an individual, but also from a manager's perspective, how have you found that experience?
Um, well, I've been working from home leading my team since February 2020. And last
Mhm.
year, working from home, we hit our targets. We exceeded our targets. And this year, we're on track to do the same.
Mhm.
As an individual, I have to confess, I have a routine. I work the same way as I would in the office. So I log on, I work, I get up, I have
Mhm.
my lunch. I don't take time to be cooking during the day, laundry. I don't do any of that. I'm at work. Some people wear pajamas. I don't do that. I dress for work. I sit down in a designated space. I have my book. I have my water. I take my snack. It's almost as if I'm in the office. Um, so that's how I've managed it. I, I've managed it. I must confess though, the one area that I failed in is that last week or 2 weeks ago was the first time I started taking a full lunch break. So
Mhm.
I would just work, eat, and back on. And I realized that I need an hour's break. I need at least a half an hour's break before I go back on. And I mean, it's something I preach to my team, but I haven't been doing it. But the constant back to back meetings, after a while, you do need a break. Um, and I feel very hypocritical about that because I insist as well for my team. We have like exercise breaks. We have an exercise break at 11 and one at 2. But here I am as a team lead, not even taking proper lunch.
Yeah.
But I'm going to correct that. In terms of leadership, I've never been one of those leaders that had to look out and see a cubicle of people and feel, oh, I'm Lord of all that I survey. It, it doesn't, it's not that for me. I always output. So I have status updates, you have deadlines. We know this is what we're supposed to deliver on. This is the strategic plan of the company. This is how customer experience strategy is supposed to roll out for this year. You know what you have to do. And I lead like that. I manage from results and objectives. So
Mhm.
physically in the building or at home, as long as I can communicate with you, it wasn't it's not a problem for me. I'm not one of those leaders that feel I need to see you in front of me
Right.
working to know that you're working, because people could be in front of you and they're not working, but they're physically there, but they're not really there. And then people talk about, well, people at home, they don't answer the phone. And I'm saying, well, those people who do not answer the phone when they're working from home, they answer the phone in the office either.
Yeah.
So let's be real. Don't blame it on at work from home. You had a productivity issue before this.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on work from home. So I hear people talking about work from home. Da, 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 da. If you don't have the correct mechanisms in place to make sure that you don't have accountability measures in place for your team, you're not communicating with your team, people don't know what's expected of them, you will have issues whether you work from home or not. And I don't have a problem with work from home, especially in this environment. I appreciate as well that school's online. I'm a mother, so more than anything else, I know what it's like. So work from home, yes, can be demanding, but you have to manage it. So like, don't
Yeah.
be like me and not take your lunch hour because you figure, well, you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to drive the crumbs to get anything. You don't have to come
Yeah.
back. Don't do that. Take your lunch hour, take your break to stretch and get away from the computer and things like that. But pretty much as a leader, work from home has not. I mean, I miss the banter and the off um, conversations that would happen in the office. But what I've done is that I transfer those to my meetings. So I deliberately start a lot of my meetings with small talk,
Yeah.
because you would not have had that you don't get those nuances. So we pass jokes, we laugh, we talk about memes, we talk about vaccines, we talk about kids, we talk about things that are happening in the environment, we talk about
Yeah.
shipping, we talk about everything. Then I get down to the meat of the matter. But I allow my meetings to deliberately go off track, so to speak, because I know that you still need that social interaction that you would have had if you were in the office, physically.
Very true.
Because you may walk by and say, wait, we eating for lunch? What's da 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 da? And you have that little small chat. So my meetings,
Yeah.
that's how I do it. I deliberately make sure that my meetings have room for just
Yeah.
casual conversation, especially if I have a team meeting, and then we can go on and discuss the business of the day. So it may look like we're off track, but I know why I'm doing that, because I need to also keep that engagement and that camaraderie going amongst my team and for everybody's sanity
Right.
as well. So that everybody. So that's just some
Yeah.
of the things that.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. That's so. We're gonna pause one more time for another cause, but before we do that, I just want you to mull over in your mind what advice would you give to employees, especially now who are working from home, to ensure that there is still that workplace balance. And we know that productivity has gone up, but it has gone up at a cost, oftentimes a personal cost. So, what advice would you give those persons as we come back from this break? So we're having a conversation with Tracy Knight Lloyd, and as we come back to this conversation, just before the break, I asked Tracy to just mull over in her mind a little bit some advice that she would give to employees who are working from home to be able to, balance out get this whole workplace and work and life balance all together.
Well, the first thing I would say is to give yourself grace.
Mm,
None of us lived through this pandemic before.
yeah,
It's new for everybody. Everybody's
very
trying
much.
to cope in their own way, in their own time. So give yourself grace. It's not an exam. Nobody
Yeah,
gets an A plus 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 with COVID. I mean, we
yeah,
don't.
correct.
Um, and then secondly, self care. I know that I may sound kind of wishy washy with that, but this self care is so real.
Yeah,
I never took it as seriously as I did during COVID, during lockdown. Find what energizes you, find what balances you, get yourself into a routine, make sure you take care of yourself. And taking care of
yeah.
yourself is what is for you. Prayer,
Mhm.
meditating, exercising, going in your garden, talking with friends, your family on Zoom, whatever re energizes you, make sure you have a program for that. If you are overwhelmed, let your team leader know.
Yeah,
You know, and I'm praying that leaders are compassionate, empathetic at this time. Somebody says,
yeah,
today I just ain't cutting it. Can I just sit out today? I need a casual day today. I'm just not coping well today, and be upfront. I'm having a difficult time. This is what's happening. So I'm having problem. A lot of companies like mine also have a structured employee assistance program where you can take advantage of counselors and psychologists to help you through. And I think that's one of the things. And don't be like me and not take your lunch break, take your breaks,
yeah.
because
Make sure you do that.
figure if you don't have anywhere to drive, I found myself putting my meetings back to back to back to back because I don't have to drive, but it's still mental. You still have to mentally shift from one topic to the next. So you really need about 15 minutes buffer time between online meetings. And I learned that the hard way. And
Yeah,
one of the things that really helped me with work life balance is having a life outside of work. And my life
yeah,
outside of work revolves around my son and my service in Rotary. I was saying that to someone earlier today that sometimes when you're bogged down in your own world and you come out to do service, you realize, you know what? It's not that bad for me. There are other people that need my help and I can help. I can do something
yeah,
worthwhile for community, you feel good and you feel better. So work life balance really has to be about having and there's some people don't like to hear this, but you really need a life outside of work. And I work to live. I don't live to work,
mhm,
and that's the truth. And I think that's one of the things that I think this is what COVID really threw up, that you need to have church, Rotary, some kind of something outside, even family engagement, something outside of work for that balance. The other thing is, I really don't believe that strongly in work life balance. And that may sound like a contradiction. I believe there's a season. There'll be seasons. There'll be times when you have to work long hours and
Word.
give it your all forth,
Mhm.
right? But don't let that shouldn't be forever. If it's forever, it means there's a structural problem in your organization. They either need better resources, better processes, or they need more people. But you should not have to work like that forever and ever and ever. There will be times when you have to do more work. There are times when you can pull back and work a regular work day and have more time for family. So I believe it's seasonal. You have to know what is required. But at the end of the day, you have to center yourself in the best way that you can, because that's the only way that you're going to really be able to get through this. And you have to fight for it. You have to be intentional about taking care of yourself, about getting that balance, about making sure that you get
Yeah,
rest and so forth. And not only for the workplace, but for your family. You have to look at how you show up for yourself and how you show up for your family. Those things are important. So I would say those are the things that I believe are
yeah,
important in terms of the work-life balance. You have to fight for it. You have to be intentional about you have your life activities that balance you, refresh you, nourish you, and bring you joy.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so very much, Tracy. This has been a rich discussion. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of that schedule and allowing us the opportunity to get a little closer, get a greater sense of understanding of Tracy Knight Lloyd and her journey in leadership. This has been Leadership Matters, and I want to say thank you so very much for joining us this evening. Remember, we are on 92.9. We are also on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Join the conversation as we continue to talk leadership, especially in this challenging VUCA world.